we have Will who's calling in from Indiana. Will, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Not much, guys. Not much. How about you?
Good.
I've been a long time watcher of the show, and I had to call in. Well, I tried to call in one time before about something, and I might get to that. But my primary topic of today is: have you ever heard of a UFO document called the Davis-Wilson Notes?
Yes. Okay. So, I'll admit this. I had to refresh my memory because you called in right before the show, and I could see the call screener wrote it down, and I was like, "What is this?" But then I remember because this is like what this is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Will, is a supposedly a document that alleges a conversation between a U.S. admiral and somebody else
Yes.
talking about a classified extraterrestrial program that the US government has
Correct.
in like researching extraterrestrial technology. That's what it is, right?
It is. Yes.
Okay.
The military official in question is Rear Admiral Thomas Wilson.
Yeah.
He was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency for quite a while, and the document has I sent the email, the actual documentation, the 15-page memo that was actually entered into the record in a congressional hearing, which is actually where I sourced this particular copy from. There's a listing there there's in the text. It says that Wilson contacted a different office to get read into the program, because that's how they talk. They said they read you into programs, and it was a major that answered the phone, which is several grades below his pay grade, and basically flatly denied him access to the program and hung up on him, and he was furious. And he never really got access to anything apart from someone basically saying, "You're right, but you're not. You don't need to know." Basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Interesting. I didn't know about that part.
I'd heard of that.
Yeah. So this is something. The reason why it rang familiar to me, Will, is because I keep up a little bit with the UFO community and stuff, right? Just like on the outskirts, right? And they have very popular topics of conversation, right, that happen in different events and stuff. And this is one of those documents that comes up because this is a conversation that allegedly happened in like 2002, but I don't think people were talking about it till like a couple years ago. And like it's one of those things where even UFO people are skeptical as to whether or not this is legit, right? Like at least that's what I've seen. And they've done interviews with a lot of different people from US intelligence and other committees who have all said like, yeah, this is BS. But of course, that's what they want you to think, right? Like you can kind of go through that whole well, they're going to be the ones to deny it, right? Yeah, go ahead.
One thing that adds veracity for me for the whole thing is Edgar Mitchell. He was an Apollo era astronaut who was not afraid about any of these people, what they're going to do to him or whatnot. He would go to anyone that would listen and basically tell them, yes, we were being observed up there. Those 2 minutes, in the original Apollo broadcast, where they switched over to the medical channel, reportedly they are saying they're up here, we're being watched.
Yeah. So wait, has Edgar Mitchell actually said that? Has Edgar Mitchell actually said that? Really? Because that's the very first I heard about it.
From what I've been exposed to in this topic that for the last like 10 years, he would basically tell anyone who would listen that this stuff is real.
Really? Okay, that'd be news to me. Maybe I need to do more of my research. For those of you who don't know at home, I got to give context, right, Will? Okay, so if you ever watch the original Apollo footage, right, original Apollo launches and stuff, there are times where, of course, like you can hear ground control talking to the astronauts, right? But there are several minutes at which you actually can't hear them because they switch to a channel that's not accessible to the public. And so there's been a lot of speculation as to what exactly happens in those conversations. Of course, when you're in space, right, there could be a couple different things. If you have information that may be related to military intelligence or maybe related to technologies and stuff that or that other foreign powers wouldn't want you to know that you have. That could be a reason why you'd want to change. Maybe you're reporting on something very personal that you don't want to go to the public. There's a million different reasons why that wouldn't happen. There's open speculation that, of course, they're talking about aliens in some of these conversations. Do with that information as you will, but just, giving background context there. Will, so like, again, going back to this original thing here, talking about these documents, I have no idea whether or not there are secret programs within the government researching extraterrestrials or extraterrestrial technology. I have a feeling though, like if there are, it would affect the way that we do things out in space, right? It would affect the way that we actually reach out and communicate, because like NASA goes out into space and like does stuff and also sends signals out and stuff. And it seems like either we wouldn't know that or they wouldn't do that if we already had contact with aliens. I don't know. Or maybe that's just a side too. I don't know. It doesn't seem like the way that NASA currently operates makes any sense if we already had access to aliens. You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you get even further into a rabbit hole of a secret space program, which I don't know that deep.
But Will, listen.
Just make a quick pivot to the JFK thing.
Oh, pivot to JFK. Wait a minute. Hold on. We gotta slow it. We gotta keep.
It's real quick. I promise you, it's real quick.
Will, you got 10 seconds. I don't know where this is going, and then I gotta let Tom speak because Tom's been listening to us talk about this, and he's like bewildered right now. I can see the look on his face.
Tom, I really do.
I don't know if he was ready for this, but Tom's here now. So welcome to Truth Wanted, Tom. This is how we get into we go deep in the paint. Anyway, Will, you got like 10 seconds.
Okay. Documentary on Amazon Prime that I saw. An Australian investigator was hired to go through the whole JFK thing. And from what he discovered, with the seats on the limo that JFK and the governor were using, that the seats that the governor and his wife used were set inward and down from the position of the president and his wife. And based on that geometry, the magic bullet thing is completely blown out of the water. The geometry actually works. The trajectory actually works to hit all of them at once. Hit the governor and the president. And from what he's saying, and what he could determine was that when Oswald shot, right, it caused a panic, and the motorcade lurched. If you look behind the president, there is a Secret Service member standing in a vehicle with an M16. And he's thinking that when the motorcade went, it lurched. This man lost his feet and fired by accident and clipped the president. The autopsy and all that is to cover it up.
You got a full-blown laugh from Tom over here.
Oh, I'm sorry. No. I mean, that's no, it was an accident. That's the first one. So Dan, you're like, what's the most popular? I've never heard this one. It was an accident by some Secret Service guy, and they're like, you know what? That was a really big fuck up. And we gotta cover this up for decades and decades and decades. And doesn't that also mean that Oswald still shot them? Like you're saying he did that, and then they unnecessarily covered it up.
Oswald shot, and then another guy.
He was always a patsy. It was meant to scare Kennedy. It wasn't to kill him.
It was meant to scare him.
Oh man,
bullets. Dude, find some other way. Why make it so needlessly complicated? And then it's like a Laurel and Hardy bit where it's like the gun falls and shoots him in the head.
And stuff. Man, yeah, that's.
But to me, it's a whole lot more plausible than some kind of giant conspiracy.
Well,
I
think it is.
I think the most plausible is that Lee Harvey Oswald shot JFK. Like, I think that's the most plausible. Right?
You've heard this thing, Will. You probably heard this thing, like the Occam's razor, right? It's the idea that includes the least number of assumptions. And the one you just had was great because it was like a comical number of assumptions that we have to get there.
The chat saying M16 is not pretty well. An M16 like rifle. Excuse me, chat. But anyway, the documentary was on Amazon Prime. I don't know if it still is. It's worth a watch at least. To see if they're probably going to present the evidence a whole lot better than I did.
For sure.
You guys go ahead and go. But nice talking to you both. And if I have another topic, I'll give it a call some other day.
All right. Well, we'll see you later then, Will. Damn, he's just gonna leave us like that. He's gonna drop that bomb and be like, "That's it. I'm out." We didn't even get to talk about the alien stuff as much though. But Tom, like, thoughts on that call? What do you think? We went some
I mean,
places there. We traveled.
Yeah,
We went.
that was up and down, left and right, and all that.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like, I'm a big fan of like the specifics,
Yeah.
right? So he's talking about that document. Obviously, you did some research on it. What is it? What does it tell us? He said it was a memo, or what's the
It
situation?
is a memo of the admiral talking to somebody else about classified UFO like programs within the government, right? And it was it's alleged that this was real, right? That this isn't just fake and this isn't just a fiction, because it is a document that you can look at. It's like 15 pages of notes,
And
right? So
what did they say? What's is it the memo of I called and they said
it's
no?
a conversation. Yeah, it's a conversation, and them telling the admiral about this program. To my knowledge, I believe that's what it is, right? And so like obviously people have been interviewed about it and have denied it and stuff. But the weird like the thing is, I mean, like there have been black programs, right? There are things like
Sure.
Guantanamo Bay is a place where shit happens, right? And so like there are people who can't talk about that. Um, uh, so like obviously there are secret programs. Are they alien related? Again, it probably like the reason why I don't think so is one, we have a very public space administration that whose budget gets like slashed all the time. Like if you remember, even in the Obama administration, it got like super slashed, and who like would be the primary source of all of our contact with UFOs. Like it would be weird to have NASA as an entity and then have another program that's like secret just for like UFO stuff. Like I don't know. I feel like to me that doesn't make as much sense, especially the way that we treat astronauts. Again, like if we're shooting people up into space to go get stuff and do stuff, I don't know. If we were afraid that aliens were going to shoot us down, we wouldn't do that, right? Unless we have some contact with them already. I don't know.
Well, I think you got to consider too. It's not just ours. It's everybody else's, right?
Yeah.
Like that. We're all shooting stuff into space. We're going into space. We're hanging out there.
True. And
And
NASA's not the only space program, right?
well,
But
and then consider the alien side of it, right? For whatever reason, they're here and they find these contacts, these deep contacts in the U.S. government, and not only that, world governments across the world, and the aliens agreed. We'll also keep this secret. From time to time, we'll dart out and shit like that, but we're going to keep it completely secret and never reveal ourselves to anyone on a cell phone or a video camera or any of that.
yeah, okay. So yeah, I had to make sure I was telling the story here right. I actually got the details mixed up a bit. Again, it's been a minute since I've seen this. It's the admiral is the one that's being interviewed. The person who's interviewing him is a person named Dr. Eric Davis, who is a physicist. Okay, the admiral himself has said that it's all fiction. The person being interviewed in these notes has said it's fiction, but people have said, oh well, of course he has to say it's fiction because he would get in trouble otherwise. It's one of those things where again you can kind of go in this thing where every truth is a lie, and you never get anywhere. But yeah, that's the story of this. I haven't thought about this in years. I mean, this is one of those ones. Again, there's a million different sort of alleged documents, secret documents from people who have claimed to have worked in some agency or another. It kind of all gets mixed up. I wish somebody called in and talked about the one CIA document of the guy who was doing like astral projection stuff. That's like a weird one. I like that one. But, there's all kinds of like fake documents. Oh, and by the way, one of the things Will mentioned was to lend credibility was that this was entered into Congress. Ted Cruz reading like Dr. Seuss books was also technically entered, into Congress. Like there's a lot of shit that goes into Congress. That doesn't mean a whole lot either. But,
Yeah, Matt Gaetz just entered like the Chinese propaganda.
Yeah. It's not as good as it once was to be entered into Congress,
Yeah.
I guess. Not as cool as it used to be. But
it's like being in the background or like getting caught on camera at a ball game and saying I was on TV.
Exactly.